Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So about 10 years ago, I got a grad scheme investment role without studying finance or economics. So in this video, I'm going to explain how. And I'm also going to explain why I have 2 copies of this book. By the way, if you're new here, my name's Josh, I'm an actuary turned YouTuber, and I currently work as an investment researcher, which means I'm always looking for new perspectives on the systems we live in and how to navigate them. So interestingly, this is a story all about Black-Scholes equation. So for those of you that don't know, the Black-Scholes equation is a second order partial stochastic differential equation. So it's very mathematically sophisticated. And the Black-Scholes equation is used to describe the price of a financial derivative over time with respect to its underlying. So my journey to work in the investment industry and throughout my degree was all centered around trying to understand this equation and how to use it in the real world. So this all started when I was in sixth form. So at school, I knew I wanted a job that paid well, but was also interesting to me. I was particularly good at maths at school, and I'd heard that if you get a degree in maths, you could quite easily get a job in finance or investment. So that became my goal. However, little did I know that actually having a maths degree was not the kind of only requirement for getting a job in finance or investment, but more on that later. So if you needed to be good at maths to work in finance and investment, I thought, well, what kind of maths do you use in finance and investment? And that led me to the aforementioned Black-Scholes equation. So in my final years at my sixth form, I got awarded the prize for academic achievement in maths and physics. It wasn't a big deal, it wasn't a big school. I think I was the only person that went to do maths. But they offered me, I think, like a £25 book token. And with that book token, I got this book. It's called Financial Calculus by Martin Baxter and Andrew Rennie, and an intro to derivative pricing. So this kind of is what got me onto the Black-Scholes equation. As you can see, I've still got stuck my little sixth form prize thing in the front of that book. So it became my goal to try and understand the maths in this equation and work out how I can use it in the real world. Interestingly, because it is a very sophisticated mathematical equation, as I said, it's a second order partial stochastic differential equation, it actually takes almost the entirety of a 4-year maths degree to get to the point where you can understand all the maths behind this equation. So when I was picking modules at university, I focused almost exclusively on modules that would get me towards that goal. So the way the university course was structured was that I had to do kind of the standard modules initially, and then you were able to specialize later on. So in my second year, I did courses such as metric spaces, differentiation, vector analysis, intro to partial differential equations, stochastic processes, maths of random events. So you can see these are all centered around statistics, randomness, and analysis. So I kind of moved away from other areas like algebra and geometry. I could see that in the 4th year syllabus there was a module called stochastic differential equations, so that was kind of my aim, and so I always made sure that I did the kind of fundamental work in the fundamental modules that enabled me to get to that course and understand finally what the Black-Scholes equation was. Interestingly, throughout this whole journey, I didn't know any finance or investment, hadn't a clue. I just sought to understand the maths to back this equation, and then I realized that I could just apply it later on, and the application was all off. And I thought that the application was actually the kind of simpler bit, and the hard bit was understanding the theory behind this equation. So I was extremely focused on doing well at maths, as I believed that that is what would differentiate me and get me a job in finance or investment. So I worked really, really hard in my second year and basically got one of the top scores in the year. I think I was like 17th out of 350, so scored quite highly, but I ended up feeling quite empty after that, to be honest, because it didn't feel that good scoring that highly, and I'd made a lot of sacrifices to get there. I'd had a tough time, I put myself through a lot, and I realized actually as I started to apply for internships at that point, essentially the application process for internships is a tick box situation. They just ask if you're on track for a 2-1 basically. So they don't ask for any kind of academic excellence. They essentially just want to know if you're on track to kind of get a good degree. And then I realized that there were all these other kind of, I guess, characteristics that they were scoring you on, like, were you a member of a society? Did you have a senior position in that society? Were you working alongside your studies to fund your degree? Like, all these kind of diverse skills and achievements that were required to get the job. I then shifted tactics quite dramatically and moved away from trying to get like the best degree in the world and score top of my year, and focused on doing well in society, so trying to get positions of seniority within societies. I think I was a member of the My Millions Investing Society and made my way to president of that society. I also got a job at a bar to kind of get broader experience, be able to tick that box on the applications. Definite learning for me at that point was everyone has got a maths degree and lots of people get a first and lots of people score highly, so that's not necessarily going to differentiate you. What differentiates you is things that are outside of that. So what are you doing in addition? With all that experience, I managed to land an internship in, yes, insurance consulting. So I applied for so many internships at investment banks, asset managers, and consultants. And where I ended up getting an internship was actually in insurance consulting. So my theory was that I found it really hard to differentiate myself. For investment banks, they didn't really care about you having maths experience. They're obviously overwhelmed applicants. And where I was able to differentiate myself was actually in insurance consulting, and in particular actuarial insurance consulting. So that was an area where you definitely needed strong math skills because the actuarial exams are hard and they're very mathematical. So I got my internship in insurance consulting and proceeded to enjoy that. At the end of that internship, I got offered a grad job in insurance consulting again, so insurance actuarial work. I'd enjoyed my internship, it was a good job, good company, and to be honest, I was so beaten up by the application process for internships that I just was pleased to go into my final year with a job in the bag and could just focus on my studies and getting my degree. In my fourth year, I continued to study stochastic differential equations. I did my project on stochastic differential equations with jumps. So as you probably have heard me talk about on this channel, one of the main flaws I realized with Black-Scholes equation is that it assumes that financial prices follow a Brownian motion stochastic process, which isn't true in the real world. As we know, in the real world, market prices often have fat tails, so a normal distribution isn't the best approximation. Actually, in the tails, it tends towards a power distribution. So my project was around how do you basically prove the Black-Scholes equation for stochastic differential equations with the occasional jump. Yeah, definitely doubled down on stochastic differential equations, even though my job was going to be in insurance consulting. Then, as I'd finished my degree, I got a call during the summer from the company saying there's no longer any jobs in insurance consulting. So would you like to come in and interview for a job in investment consulting? I was initially very annoyed because I thought I'd had a job that got taken away, but I was excited to go and interview in an area where I was actually super interested. So I went in, interviewed for a role in the investment consulting business as an investment researcher, and was able to finally use a lot of my investment knowledge that I've been building up over the years in the interview. Got the grad job and started that summer as a investment consultant / investment researcher. And because of that shift from the insurance consulting to the investment consulting business, I was able to then study the investment syllabus of the actuarial qualification, which meant that I was able to finally apply the Black-Scholes equation in a finance setting and get paid to do it, which was fantastic. So that is why I have 2 copies of this book, because this book is also on the actuarial syllabus. So when you start to specialize in finance and derivatives as an actuary, that is part of the core reading, along with options, futures, and other derivatives. This is like the Bible of derivatives. Yeah, you definitely become an expert on financial theory. I think actuarial is fantastic, particularly on the investment side, because a degree in financial mathematics, or like a master's in financial mathematics from one of the top tier universities, costs, well, at the time it was about 25 grand. But obviously you study all this as part of the actuarial syllabus on the job, so you get paid while you're doing it, you get study days, and also you get a much broader education as well. So I also studied economics, business, they do presentation skills, all sorts, lots of twists and turns. That was my story. And that is how the Black-Scholes equation kind of carried me through to my job in investment. Slight detour to insurance consulting in the middle, but we got there in the end. Some key learnings, I guess, for me throughout this process. Like, if I could go back and speak to myself throughout this whole process, I would say to myself, 1, keep pushing and deal with the rejections. You know, I think as a kind of top level student, you get used to kind of success, so doing well on everything, and kind of failing something is kind of rare. But when you're going to the job market, it's flipped around, I would say. You know, you're competing against lots of other highly qualified people, and you're more likely to not get the job than get the job. The stats are not in your favor. Just remember that, and then just keep pushing through. I also wish that I'd potentially, after my internship, just hustled again and worked harder and tried to get a different job, because I think I sat on my laurels a bit with my grad offer, and I wish that I'd actually kind of pushed a bit harder and maybe thrown out a few more applications while I still had the chance. Then my second key learning is doing well at work isn't about being the smartest person. Like, being smart really helps, but initially it's about being useful and having like people skills, you know, time management skills, and all this stuff that they teach you. And you don't learn that by doing well on a degree. You do that maybe to some extent, you learn about deadlines and things, but it's more about how you deal with people and teamwork, which is why they put so much emphasis on team sports, on societies, because these are kind of purpose-driven organizations that have hierarchies and I would say most accurately resemble the world of work. So if you're able to do well in those, I think it stands you in good stead for doing well at work. My third learning is just to go with the flow. There's a lot of randomness here. I ended up getting my investment job by, well, it felt like luck at the time. As I explained to you now, you can see there's this kind of common theme pushing me towards investment throughout the whole journey. Before I even got my internship, insurance consulting, I was going to be an accountant. So just go with the flow. You never know what's going to happen. I'm really happy with the way it worked out, because by the time I got called to interview for the insurance consulting role, I'd been through so many assessment centres and interviews that I was so well drilled that I went into that interview and absolutely smashed it. So it kind of has a weird way of working out, this universe. And then the fourth thing is that, again, most people in the work world I now know operate more on their experience and their intuition, and not necessarily on theory, I would say. And I focused a huge amount on theory. As I said, I decided to just learn all of the deep mathematical theory behind this Black-Scholes equation, and I thought that's what would differentiate me. When I got into the real world, I realized that people can use the Black-Scholes equation without really deeply understanding it. People turn it into a spreadsheet that you just put numbers in and you get numbers out. So understanding it, I think it helped me, but it wasn't necessary at all, and I should have focused on building these broader skills. So my 5-step plan for getting a grad job investment would be focused on getting a 2-1. You don't necessarily need a first. If I was to go back to uni, I would probably spend more time reading around the subject and getting diverse experience rather than focusing on my studies. 2, I would get as much practical experience as possible. That could be in societies, so trying to get a position of seniority within a society. Learn how to work your way around different hierarchies and cultures. That will stand you in really good stead for work. As I said, read around the subject, so I would go and find the top 10 books, not even technical books, the top 10 popular books about the subject or about investment. That's taught me so much more than anything I learned in my studies, and it's often the most current thinking as well. So the examples I would use in investment are these two. So Benoit Mandelbrot, he talks about basically why the Black-Scholes equation isn't right, and Adaptive Markets by Andrew Lo, he talks more about a better and more, current model of financial markets. So I kind of wish I'd read those earlier. Yeah, I would have read around the subject a lot more and read the popular books around the subject a lot more. I know it can be hard when you're so pressured on your studies, but if you take the pressure off a bit and think I need a 2-1, then I think that could be really valuable. I think number 4 in my 5-step plan would be put as much energy as possible into something that is outside of your studies, just to get a kind of an achievement or something that would make you stand out to employers, because they get thousands of applicants, all with a first in maths from one of the top 5 unis. So I would put something in there that really makes you stand out. So what I would go back and do now is probably some I love long distance cycling, so I would have just done some crazy cycle that made me stand out, and kind of would have done it for charity, and would have that on my CV as kind of a extracurricular achievement. Don't like the idea of turning their hobbies into achievements, but I would do it just so you stand out in an application. And then finally, 5, for investment, I would actually do some investing. So you probably all do this already anyway, but if you're applying for an investment job, try and get some money and invest it in the market and experience the market. So maybe pick an investment strategy. There's some in my videos that I explained, and definitely think about investing your own money, experiencing investment firsthand. So there we have it. That is how I got a job in investment without studying finance or economics, and my journey to understanding the Black-Scholes equation. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to hear more from me, don't forget to check out this one here.